right, well, let's get started. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening if you're joining us from Asia Pac, and thanks again for joining us this week. My name is Laura McNeil. I am a Sterling Master Examiner, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the sixth session of the Sterling Core Values Leadership Series. Each of our 11 sessions in the series is designed to highlight a Sterling core value in a 7-minute leadership brief followed by a Q&A session. Our core values for Sterling are the basic elements of how we go about our work. They are the practices we use or should be using every day in everything that we do. And today's core value is agility and resiliency, featuring Sterling Master Examiner Anthony Napolitano. Anthony is lead IT governance and process improvement specialist at DTC. But before I do turn this over to Anthony for his 7-minute leadership brief, I just wanted to remind everyone to please submit your questions through chat. We'll be sourcing questions through chat for a Q&A discussion after Anthony's presentation today. So at this time, I would like to introduce Anthony Napolitano.
Oh, thank you, Laura. I just want to start off with everybody. Welcome to Agility and Resilience. This is not results, which is what I usually present on, but this is actually what I do for a living. Mostly I do Agile, big A, which is a little different from agility, but we'll get into that. Starting off, we are at the halfway point right today. Today is 6 of 11. And we're talking about really the newest core value of agility and resilience. Agility used to be in organizational learning, but has been spun out and paired with resilience to be a new one just in the last few years. And because it's new, let's start with some definitions. Let me give you a quick one, quick definitions for each. Agility refers to the ability to change in response to market conditions. It's just a quick way to think about it. And a quick way to think about resilience refers to the ability to change in response to unavoidable disruption. That's great for getting you thinking about it, but we got to go a little deeper. So 2 weeks ago now, Harry Hertz, our cheermudgeon, I believe is how he calls himself, over in Baldridge, he put out a blog post about this. So it was great. I was able to go and see what he has to say. And let's start with his definitions. But I think his definitions do need a little bit extra tweaking. So starting with his definition of agility, it refers to the ability to make rapid change and achieve flexibility in operations in response to changes in the external environment or to take advantage of an immediate opportunity. I think he needs to add, flexibility in strategy, workforce, and operations, not just operations, but strategy and workforce. It's important that your agility is not just, in the people it's not just in the work process, but is in the people doing the work. And more importantly, the strategy that drives the direction of your work. And resilience. Resilience is a block here. It refers to the ability to anticipate, prepare for, and recover from disasters, emergencies, and other disruptions, and to protect and enhance workforce and customer engagement, supply network and financial performance, organizational productivity, and community well-being when disruption occurs. I think that's a great base, but I think we also need to add, as 2 weeks ago, Bob Garrick told us, and last week, Bob Aderos again told us, is, you need to be able to take advantage of strategic opportunities that arise because of disruptions also, to be truly resilient. So that's our definitions. So, why? Why do we need these things? So we're starting with, why do we need agility? And it really has to do with the speed of change. And that's great building off of innovation of last week. Apple came along and revolutionized music and then revolutionized phones right one after each other. Now we have Venmo in the banking industry, really changing the way you do peer-to-peer payments, and Bitcoin. And, they'll introduced a whole new class of currency. And on top of that, their distributed ledger technology is making waves across the banking industries also. So that's why we need agility, is just to be able to keep up with that speed of change and not be left behind. Sports metaphor. Quick warning, let's talk about rugby. Rugby is a great analogy and a metaphor for agility. It's a continuous play game. You don't stop just for any reason. There's only defined stoppages. It's not like football where you stop for a play. So you have to keep going, and you have to keep your strategy moving and changing. And it takes really strategic and tactical agility, not just physical agility. As you go from play to play, you have to think, okay, where can my next step be? Where do I go? Like, what opportunities have gone away and what opportunities have opened? And you need to be able to assess it quickly and make change and move forward so you can hit your goal. And that's really how your organizational needs to be too. It needs to be not set in stone how it's going to go forward. It still needs to have its goal, but how you get there is going to change constantly. And what opportunities, open up for you to make your goal will be there also. So let's switch to resilience. Why do we need resilience? And the fact is, we did it to ourselves. We leaned down, we became agile, we went to the cloud, and globalized in the name of maximizing shareholder value. In the short term, which really opened us up to greater disruption. Our supply networks became, singular, became, globalized, so that if, our one supplier for the project, on the other side of the world is all of a sudden not able to produce, it crippled us, and that's really what happened in our global supply chain backups. And also for COVID, when it comes to COVID, we had to change the way we did almost everything. And you had to be able to bounce forward from that, because there were opportunities that were, coming up during COVID and coming up during the supply chain that, you needed to be able to take advantage of if you truly wanted to thrive. So my next sports metaphor, boxing. And really, I think this is the best metaphor for resilience I can really talk to you about. And this is the Rumble in the Jungle, October 30th, 1974. World heavyweight boxing champion, it was George Foreman. And he was a power puncher. He was known for going out and finishing guys in 2 rounds, including former champion Joe Frazier and, real power puncher himself, Ken Norton. Well, Muhammad Ali was aging. He was 32. He needed to figure out a new way to get through this. Like, what can I do to beat this new champion? So what did he do? He took his best strength and made it a weakness for Foreman's best strength and made it a weakness. He leaned into the ropes. He let Foreman punch himself out, punching into his blocks and letting the energy go into the ropes instead of being absorbed by his own body. So in the 8th round, he was able to come back and knock out Foreman. Foreman punched himself out, and Ali was able to take care of that opportunity. So some quick closing thoughts for you. Really, you have to change the way you think. You have to think about agility and resilience. The world moves too quickly to stand still. Agility and resilience must be built into your strategy and workforce, not just your operations. Resilience tends to go outside of your organization, to your supply networks and your community also. Having agility allows you to adapt to and take advantage of a shift in your strategic context. And having resilience allows you to adapt to and take advantage of disruptions. And before we go to the Q&A, I just wanted to show you my credentials. This is my credentials. If you were to look on the far left, that is me and my agile and resilient best at the USF Rugby Club over 20 years ago. So that's my credentials.
All right, so I guess we can open it up for Q&A. Thank you, Anthony. Very, very insightful. In fact, I'll have to use that Muhammad Ali metaphor at some point. I really love that. Let the ropes absorb the blow. Yeah, it really gives you a great perspective as to how you orient yourself and take advantage of your situation or scenario that you're in. And I had no idea that you had a rugby past. So love the picture. Love the picture. If I could summarize, because I've been taking notes as you're talking, what you just went through, I came up with 5 bullets. Hardwire resilience into organizational strategy, workforce and community and performance measures and operations. Resilience protects us from disruption. Fight smarter and not harder. Incorporate resilience outside your organization. Consider the supply chain network and communities that are served. And change the way you think. Focus on agility and resiliency intentionally. Is that about right?
It sounds great.
Okie doke. All right, so let's go to the queue. I do have a question that came in. Can you provide an example you have seen in regard to hardwired agility into productivity and organizational strategy?
Oh, yeah. And to tell you the truth, the best place I see it, and I see this as an examiner all the time, is in hospitals. Hospitals are great about being able to, like, shift as the tide comes in, because they need to. They absolutely need to be able to shift their focus from what was, yesterday to what was today. And we saw it wonderfully. It's more resilience, but it's also agility in how quickly they were able to move with COVID and change their priorities and change their strategies on the fly.
Yeah, that's a great example. What about agility and resilience? How they are comparable? They appear to be comparable. Can you have resilience without agility?
My answer would actually be no. And this is why. This is, from me. I would say, like, if you have resilience without agility, you just have recovery or continuity of your business. And resilience is taking that the next step forward and being able to take advantage of opportunities as they arise in these disruptions.
Okay. Interesting. Can you provide an example of how an organization focused on resilience externally to their organization?
Sure, sure. And COVID's given me all these wonderful examples, but I'm going to go to Costco. Costco, even before COVID, their supply chain was one of their biggest strengths. And also, of course, their employees and the way they treated both their employees and their customers. And that went even farther during COVID. They were able to come in and work with the supply networks to get things they needed that weren't going to anybody else. They worked with their customers to make sure they understood why there were going to be limits on buying things like the great paper shortage, the paper product shortages. But and they were also, even during these global supply chain disruptions, they worked to get containers, so that way they have the containers they need to do their shipping.
Okay. Can you tell us how resilience is different from disaster recovery or continuity of business?
Yeah, and I got into it a little bit before. And let me go back to our sports metaphors here. My favorite way to do this is to talk about, again, boxing. And like when we talk about recovery is when you've already been knocked out, you're out of the fight. What do you do to get ready for that next fight? So it's over. You can't do anything about it. Like, what's happened. How do I go through and recover so I can fight again another day? Continuity is after you've been knocked down. How do you make sure you can get back up and continue to fight? Where resilience is about, how do I not only stop myself from getting knocked down during these heavy punches, but how do I use that to my advantage, like Muhammad Ali did, and punch back and take those opportunities to make sure I can win the fight.
Got it. All right, we have time for one more question. How would you incorporate agility and resilience into your strategy?
Well, it's important, not to have things, have your, like some people, the old way strategies, you set it in stone and this is what we're going to work on, and you were single-minded and did it. You can't be that way anymore. You need to always be scanning. So you have to build into your strategy the ability to be flexible, the ability to change course as needed when, sometimes your strategic objectives are no longer valid. They're no longer, important. And as that happens, your strategy needs to have the ability to go for the next opportunity and always know that there's another opportunity that's not out there. How do we shift our gears to move towards that way? I like to think of it this way, like, you always have your vision. You have that, the top of the mountain. I'm going to climb the mountain. Well, if there's a, mountain slide on, on the north face, you have to now say, okay, well, how do I get around to the east face and take that path up instead? And so your mission changes of, my mission was originally to climb the north face of the mountain to get to the top. Now my mission, my vision is still to make it to the top of the mountain, but now my mission is going to be to take the, the east side and take that route up to the top of the mountain.
Got it. Very good. Well, thank you very much, Anthony. It's been very interesting chatting with you about agility and resiliency. I appreciate your taking the time out of your day to share this with us. As a reminder, I do want to remind everybody to please check in at floridasterling.com for additional content from today's session, including a transcription of my series session summary notes, if you're interested. And if you've enjoyed today's session, please feel free to forward the registration link to others. Don't forget to tune in at the same time next week. 7-minute Sterling Core Values Leadership Series brief is focused on management by fact, featuring Sterling Master Examiner Dr. Samson Goldstein. He's the professor in Industrial and Systems Engineering and Engineering Management Department at the University of Alabama. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you all for choosing to spend some of your day with us today, and I hope you make it a great day. Thank you all.